The last few days of devotionals have really got me thinking about a parable that Jesus tells in Matthew chapter 7. And in it, he's contrasting two builders, one that he calls wise, and it says about that builder that when the rain would come in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against the house that he built, that it would not collapse. Why? Because it was built on bedrock. And then he talks about a builder that he considers foolish, that when the rains and the floods came and the winds beat against that house, that it collapsed with a mighty crash. Why? Because that builder built it on sand. Now, why would anyone build a house on sand? I've been a part of a number of building projects over the years, and any contractor I've ever known said the most important part of any construction project is the foundation. It's what supports everything else. It doesn't matter if you have great plumbing or great electrical, you've got to have a solid foundation. And that's part of Jesus's point in this parable. And, what I think is so critical to ask in this question is even again, why is it that anyone would build something on sand? Now, many of us as kids, or maybe sometimes as an adult, we've built sand castles, but certainly anything of value we wouldn't think to build on sand. But there's an idea here that I think we miss. And the reality is that building on sand is a shortcut. It's cheaper, it's easier maybe, less difficult. And so often in life, shortcuts are taken. And we even hear about buildings that collapse because of shortcuts that have been taken. But what I think is so critical here is that Jesus isn't giving a construction lesson. He's giving a life lesson. In fact, that's why we call it a parable. The Greek word that we have our English word parable come from literally means to throw alongside. And one of my favorite definitions that I've heard for a parable, a biblical parable, is that it's an earthly story that's told giving us heavenly meaning, earthly story with heavenly or eternal meaning. And that's what Jesus is trying to point out here. He's trying to point out about life and how critical it is that we do life right. He says here in this passage that anyone who listens to his teaching and follows it is like the wise builder who's built a house on solid rock. But then he says that anyone who hears his teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like the builder who built the house on sand. And I think that's so crucial for us to consider. Are we building our lives on sand or on rock? Again, sometimes not building on sand can be more expedient possibly and less difficult. But I've never found those things to be quicker and easier to usually be what pays off the best in the long run. And that's true of our life as well. And I think it's a little bit of an EKG time right now. Checking our hearts and asking ourselves, are we living according to the ways of this world? Or are we living according to the ways of Jesus? Now, I can tell you I've done both. And there's a clear winner in my mind for which is the best, far and away. But I get it. I get it why sometimes, why even myself, I've chosen the easier way, the quicker path, and not realizing that God's way is always going to be the better way. In fact, it's always the best way. And it's the way that is going to give us the greatest long-term eternal benefit. And when I build my life, and when you build your life on the rock which is Christ Jesus, that is truly the greatest anchor that we'll ever have. The storms are real, and you've probably had them come already, and I'm willing to bet more are coming. But when we're anchored to that bedrock of Christ Jesus, our life is going to weather that storm because it's built and supported by Him. I pray that you would walk in that truth today, and may God bless you.